You are now listening to the Do It Movement podcast, where we share our experiences in real estate investing and encourage you to take action. You don't want to miss what we have in store today, so let's welcome our host, Martine Richardson, and our co-host, Lori Eubanks.
What's up, Do It Movement listeners? This is your host, Martine Richardson, your buy and hold coach. I am joined today with my co-host, Lori Eubanks, and the Will Galloway. How are you doing?
I'm so blessed to be here. I'm so blessed to be on this stage with my great friend, Martine. I'm excited about the show, man. Thank you for the invitation.
And thanks for coming. It's going to be a good one.
Absolutely.
We're so excited to have you, and I just know our team, our network, and if everyone listening to this video is going to benefit from this. So we'd love to hear, where did you start? What's your story? How has your journey been through real estate?
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. I think we were talking a little bit earlier. My journey started back in 2012. Well, actually, I take that back. It actually started in 2007. 2007, a lot happened. I actually bought my first house. I wasn't an investor. I didn't want to be an investor. I bought my first house in 2007. And then also within that, I bought my first flip project. I was doing just like everybody else do, looking at flip this house, seeing how people turn an ugly house into a beautiful house. And it looked fun. It looked amazing until you actually get started yourself. And then I made a ton of mistakes doing that. And that was, like I said, in 07, I bought my first house and bought my first flip project. And then you know what happened around 2008, the crash happened. So I literally sold the house, the flip project. I sold the house barely. And then my house actually, ended up almost going into foreclosure, but luckily I was able to save it along the way. But it was just a lot. And that was in 2007, 2008-ish. After that, I just got out of the business. I didn't want nothing to do with real estate no more. And, I just learned my lesson. I was like, man, I'm almost losing my house to foreclosure. Then I barely sold this house, which I lost money on. So I was like, I'm done with real estate, and I took the money that I did get back from it. And I got into the nightclub business in Alabama. I bought a building down there, got into the nightclub business, and that business didn't work. It lasted for probably about 2 years back in 2000. I met my wife around 2010, and then around 2012, I think I saw an infomercial or some type of commercial talking about flipping houses and wholesaling houses. Again, that was me thinking, like, I thought back then you had to buy a house, you had to, purchase it, use your own money, get a loan and stuff like that. But I never knew about the concept of wholesaling, where you can actually flip a house, without no credit involved, without no cash involved, just assigning contracts. And I literally closed my first deal in 2013. And I haven't looked back since. And, since then I built, a really large rental portfolio and wholesale, hundreds of houses since then.
That's amazing. Wow. So when you were jumping in and you're like, I'm going to do this, how did you find the money?
You talking about when I first started wholesaling?
When you first started, yeah. When you first started your buy and hold. So how long did you wholesale before you started the buy and hold?
Yeah, so I did it. The way I did it, it was totally opposite from what's taught out here. Most people are taught to, leverage your credit and go out there and, of course, apply the burst strategy and do things like that. At the time, I didn't do it that way. I started wholesaling, like I say, back in 2013. And I'm always been a person to save money. And I was just saving a lot of my assignment checks and a lot of my wholesale checks. And just over time back then, probably within 2013, all the way up to like 2015, properties were still like really, really cheap back then. So I was taking a lot of my cash and I was buying houses cash. So it was almost like every 3 to 4 wholesale deals. If I'm making 10, 20, 30,000 off a wholesale deal, every 3 to 4 deals, I was buying a house for like 20, 30,000. I had started accumulating so many properties doing that. And at the time, buy and hold was not even a strategy I even wanted to do. I didn't want to be a landlord. I felt like I wanted to get back into the fix and flip game. So I did a couple of flips, using my own money. Still wasn't leveraging no credit. Still wasn't getting any lenders. I was just still doing everything out of pocket.
Wow.
And I did a couple of flip projects, which, ended up turning out pretty good. And then I looked up and I think this was like 2016, 17. I looked up and I had like over 10 properties free and clear that I had just bought from over time. And I was like, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fix these houses up and I'm going to just retail them and flip them one by one. That's what I said I was going to do. And I think after my second or third one I did, flipping it's a great strategy, but it's just so much involved. It's so much involved, dealing with contractors, dealing with the city, dealing with permits, dealing with plans, just all the stuff above. And I quickly, said, you know what, let me step back from that. And I never stopped wholesaling, just kept wholesaling. And then intuition came over me. I say it was God. Something said, you got all of these properties that you don't have no mortgage on. Why you just don't hold on to these properties? Why you got to sell them? And one of the things that confirmed that was the right thing to do is I remember I had bought a house for like $20,000 and I put another maybe 50, 60,000 into it. And I think I sold it for like, I think 120 or something like that. And to me, that made the profit looked good. But when I looked at it 3 years later, after I sold that property, that house was worth almost 300,000.
Wow.
I'm like, what am I doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, what am I doing? Like, the math ain't mathing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but what it taught me was like, if you patient, and you hold on to these properties, you basically build a fortune, you know what I'm saying? Just being patient and just holding on to these properties. And I looked and said, man, I got all these other properties over here. I'm not going to sell them. I'm just going to fix them up one by one, and just keep them, hold on to them. And that's what I did. I got, close to 20 properties right now. Only 2 of them got mortgages. That same house I told you I almost foreclosed on, I still have that house. And I think I might pay it off this year. I think I only owe like 20 some thousand on it. So I might pay it off this year. And then I got one that I have bought a note on, and the note is like 30 grand or something like that. I'm gonna probably pay that out too. But other than that, everything else I own free and clear. But that was, all of these houses when I was buying them, they was distressed houses. So they wasn't rent ready or nothing like that. So they were just sitting vacant, and one by one, I was just taking my wholesale profits and fixing them up one by one, one by one. And then I eventually, got into like putting them on Section 8, and that was the best decision I could ever make.
Let's talk about that. Just amazing the recap of you growing and so many people that are wholesaling and not thinking, the delay equals dollars. If you can hold it, how much more wealth you can gain. So now that you have these properties, let's talk about how you're filling them and the Section 8 side. How did you come across that avenue?
Yeah, it's funny because, when people think about Section 8, people think about, all these bad tenants, they're going to tear your property up. You know what I'm saying? You got all of these, different myths out there that people talk about. And I was one of the people who believe the same thing. It's a bad stigma when you say the word Section 8. I think what happened was renting. It seemed like when I was renting my properties out, I was running into bad tenants, tenants that wasn't paying. You run into like a lot of vacancies and stuff like that. And as a landlord, vacancies that taps into your bottom dollar, so I was just trying to figure out a way that, I could alleviate not having so many vacancies and having somebody who really wants to be there. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and that's why it's always good to be around the right community, because if you're not educated on certain things and you're around the right people, they can, give you in the right direction. And I was around some friends, and they was just telling me that they got all of these properties and they were filling them with Section 8, and they were saying the money is guaranteed and they pay market rent. So I was like, that was another thing I always thought. Not only did they mess up your property, but I didn't think that they paid you that much. So I was like, let me try this out, and I end up, going through the process. Each housing authority has their own different process. Sometimes you have to go through like a orientation and stuff like that. You have to sign up to be a voucher holder. I mean, not a voucher holder, but be a participant in their program. And when I did it, I didn't have any issues. It just, everything was like they said. Like, the only thing I think that was kind of in the beginning that was kind of a struggle was just making sure everything passed inspections. And once I learned the checklist and make sure I knew that all the properties need to be this way to make sure they pass, from there, everything was kind of simple, and I understood, my housing authority, how they work, what they're looking for, how to market to the tenants, and everything became pretty simple. And one of the things that I know that confirmed that this was the right choice for me was back when COVID happened. I had a lot of friends who have a lot of properties, and they would just complain about, man, when people lost jobs or when things happened, everything that when the world shut down, like a lot of them were not getting paid, because people couldn't work. It was a lot going on, and I just kept getting those checks coming in, like it didn't stop. So I had some friends who was going through things, and I wasn't going through anything. So that's another thing I like it because it's pandemic free, where you don't have to worry about the economy if we go into another shutdown or anything like that, or another recession. The government's still gonna pay you, and that gave me comfort.
That's amazing. And I guess the question I have that you hear out there is that they stay longer. How has that been? The vacancy rate is much less. Are these renters staying with you longer in that program?
I think at the end of the day, some of them do. Like I do have some that still been with me since I first, started 6, 7 years ago. Some of them still with me, and then we have had some turnover. So I wouldn't say it's better than renting to when it comes to turnover. I wouldn't say it's the
Okay.
same, because some people, they get to that point where they want something different. I think some people either they voucher change because maybe they had a 3-bedroom voucher and then she had children, so now she needs a larger unit. So she had to move. She was forced to move, or somebody had to relocate or something like that. And then you have some people that just outgrow the property where they just want something different. So that happens, sometimes. But for the most part, people want to be stable. They want, and they understand. This what when I talk to my tenants, they say, well, I don't want to go nowhere because the way you treat me, the way you take care of the properties. And also they talk about, the fact that it's hard to find property, especially if you're in a metropolitan, like I'm in Atlanta. So it's harder to find a quality property. And you might think that, it's not, but it is, so they feel like, just like if you had to move, like it's so much involved in moving. You got to hire movers, you got to pack, you got to do this. It's a lot involved, you know what I'm saying? And if somebody got somebody who's taking care of them, when you call them for repairs, they making sure they take care of everything, and they treating you how you want to be, you treating them how you want to be treated, then they're going to take care of your properties. And that's why another thing, I don't have people messing up my properties.
I
I even
love that.
posted a video, and it went viral. It did like 100, like 1 million views. And it was just me showing how a tenant moved out and she took care of my property. And then I didn't even realize, like, Section 8 is like a whole community itself. Like, it's a lot of like people that they ride with, like people who support them, because it's so many people that's like talking down on them. So, and they really was just saying a lot of nice, kind things. And it just went into a whole thing where, it went viral.
That's amazing. And now, it's that recession proof. So you're not worried if it goes in another dip because you've already felt that through COVID. So that's amazing, incredible. So wanted to ask you, through this journey, you had friends that you confided in, that, mentors or a circle of people. How did you find, a group that you can talk to really come and get advice on that situation?
Yeah, I think it's just a mixture of just being involved in different real estate meetups, being involved in, because me and a friend of mine, I met a lot of my friends through a meetup that we actually started. Me and a friend of mine, we started a meetup back in 2015. And it was a wholesaling meetup, and we just met a lot of people that we still have strong relationships with to this day. And then, once you start, hiring coaches, you start getting in other meetup groups, you start getting in other communities, you start meeting like-minded people. And once you start meeting like-minded people, then, that's when it's all about connecting and, seeing what things y'all have in common. I started meeting a lot of my friends who they had rental properties too, and they was exercising, Section 8 in my city. And I got like a handful of friends that's in my city that, they have just as many properties as I do. And we all still learn from each other. We all still ask, questions. And if I have somebody who's looking for something, I'll refer them to them and they'll do the same thing. So we have our own community of like-minded people that's doing the same thing, and we all helping each other grow. If a different strategy come about, we help each other. Like I just had another friend of mine, he has about 50 properties, and he told me about a new strategy that he's implementing, and I just implemented it for the first time, and I'm excited about it. And it's a new way,
Love it.
where I've turned like a single family house into like a multifamily. So
Oh, wow.
I'm just excited just to be around like-minded people that I can learn from as well.
Okay. Well, I love how you started your meetup and you met people and now you're considering them friends and you put yourself in that environment where now you have people around you that'll help elevate you as well as you're helping elevate them as well. You guys are sharing different strategies, tips, and tricks. So that's amazing. I don't want people to overlook that because who you're around means a lot. If you're
Right.
around people that they don't support what you're doing, they don't believe in it because they've never done it, they start placing their belief on you, and then you start to feel that, well, maybe I can do this. So yeah, I don't
Right.
want people to overlook that because that's huge. That's huge. So I want to go back though. You said that you started, I believe it was 2007, and you barely, sold that flip. Your house was going into foreclosure. You said, forget this real estate stuff. I'm losing money. Like, this is not for me. Then 2013, you said that you saw an infomercial and it made you want to get back into it. So let's talk about that a little bit more because it made you want to wholesale, it seems. And maybe that wasn't the case, but it seems like it made you want to wholesale. But did you like call up the infomercial and say, "Hey man, y'all got some coaching? I'm trying to get it," or like what was your next steps in terms of learning what to do?
Well, that's funny. I think what happened was, so let me just say this. Around that time, I had, like I told you, I had got out of the nightclub business and I literally didn't have no income coming in once I sold that business. All my income went out. I had a really nice luxury car at the time. I had a Mercedes. I ended up having to sell that because I didn't have no income coming in and I hadn't worked in so many years. And I was just like, man, I got to figure something out. So I literally didn't have no money. And at the time, Martine, I couldn't even afford a coach. I came
Mm,
across that. I came across that wholesaling infomercial, but once I heard the concept of wholesaling, I basically went to YouTube University, and
I love
I
it.
just really, I dissected all of the information, every video there was on wholesaling. I just absorbed it and I just took the time and I really, really, really studied. And I may have bought a course. I think I may have bought a course because I think back then you could still find like $100, $200 courses and stuff like that. But I didn't even really have the money at the time to even afford that.
Mm,
I was, as far as marketing, we was doing postcards and yellow letters, but I was handwriting everything. I couldn't afford to hire no company. I was putting
mhm,
out bandit signs. I couldn't afford to get the printed bandit signs. I had to literally buy the plain ones and get a Sharpie and we buy houses on it. And, I was just out late at night. I just remember me and my wife was talking about that. I just remember like um what how I was able to be successful is I lived and breathed it and I
mm,
put in the work and it was sleepless nights. Like it was nights at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm writing hand letters and putting out signs. I don't care if it was raining, I don't care if it was snowing. Like I really, really wanted it that bad. And I feel like in
mhm,
business and in life, if it's something you want to do and you don't have it in you to want it that bad where like nothing else
mhm.
matters but that, then it's gonna be hard for you to make it. And I had that desire where nothing else mattered but that at the time outside of my family and God, but nothing else mattered. Like that was gonna work. Like if that didn't work, like I was literally gonna have to go back to work to and I
Right,
didn't want.
right, right. So what I'm hearing from you, success was the only option. You were
It
going
was
to
no other
keep
option.
going until you were successful. You kind of it reminds me of a story I had when I first started too that I kind of want to share. So I remember Will and I we met when back in our wholesaling days, and I remember I was wholesaling and I was putting out some bandit signs to try to get a buyer for a property, and like I'm putting all sorts of things on these bandit signs to get people to call me. I'm like desperate, need to sell, need cash now, anything to get people to call me. So I had my mom in the car with me doing it, and she's dying laughing at me. She's like, wow, you're willing to do whatever it takes to sell this property. And I say, yes, I am. It must work. I don't want to go back to work. I have to make it happen. So I think people shouldn't like just browse over that because like when you have that drive, it doesn't matter what obstacle gets in my way. It doesn't matter if it's gonna take me a while to get this done. It doesn't matter if I'm gonna have sleepless nights. I'm gonna do whatever it takes to make it happen for me. That guy on the infomercial said it worked, so you believed him. You like he said it worked. So it has to work. So you have to just keep doing it until it starts working for you. But we met back in Wholesaling Inc. days. And that was a wonderful group that personally changed my life, to be honest. It was the first time I ever started making money in real estate. And I met Will there. So tell us about what made you want to join like a coaching program, because you were already doing it, it sounds like. But what made you want to join that coaching program?
I think, once I had started seeing, well, first you got to believe, going back to the original story, I had to believe that it worked. So I had to see that it worked. Seeing that it worked, then it wasn't nothing gonna stop me from getting to the finish line. And once I got to the finish line and I was able to continuously get success from it, then I knew the next thing was going to be, okay, I got into here off YouTube University, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to succeed just only by leaning on that. I had to get further education, and I had to get around like-minded people like we talked about earlier. And I had to get around a community of people that, represent what I represent. And at the time, I think I seen one of Tom Cruise, one of his commercials. And, Tom, just his whole aura, his demeanor, his personality, it resonated with me. It really resonated with me. And he was very successful in the way he coached wholesaling. And I just felt like, it aligned with what I had going on. And I just wanted to be a part of it. And I think that was when we first met. I think we met at one of the events that he had. I think one of the mastermind events. I know he was doing like I think it was quarterly events or something during. And we met at one of the quarterly events, and it was amazing. I didn't even know that I had met Tom even before that, because I was a part of Sean Terry's, one of his programs. And this is when Sean Terry had first got into the coaching scene. And I think Tom was a part of, when Sean came to Atlanta, I think that's when Tom came out there as well. And I think that's when I first met him, but I didn't really know him, but that's when we first kind of met each other. I think that was when he first started wholesaling as well. And fast forward, he ended up building that Wholesaling Inc. community into an amazing platform. I mean, I met a lot of people. I think I met Brandon Barnes from there, and just a couple different investors that's on a high level that I met there. And those relationships still to this day, even the relationship I have even with Martine, those relationships are still strong to this day. So that just shows you the power of coaching, the power of network, the power of masterminds. It's a must. You have to surround yourself around the right people. And, we got to pay to get into these rooms. And, I'm okay with that, if it's going to help me get to the next level. So that's how that happened.
Right. Because, I mean, yeah, you have to pay to get into the room, but you're really just investing in your future. You're investing to make this sustainable. You're investing to whatever you're looking to get out of this room. And I mean, just the relationships themselves is like, that's priceless. You're able to hang around people with similar mindsets as you. If you're stuck in a rut, you have a network you can reach out to see how can you change different situations. You can call your friends up to be on your podcast. You can so many things you could do.
Absolutely. You're right.
But let's talk about, so once you joined, you said you knew you needed coaching. You was at YouTube University. You knew you needed coaching to make this sustainable for you because, you were making it happen, but you were kind of like piecing it together from what you learned from YouTube University.
Yeah.
What changed for you once you joined that coaching?
I mean, everything changed. I think it's levels to everything in life. There's always levels. And I felt like I had just reached a plateau, when I was where I was. And I felt like I had to get around people, not only just like-minded people, but people who just were way smarter than me, and I just knew that everybody in that community, majority of them that I was listening to was way smarter than me. And I felt like I knew it all. I'm like, at that point, I was like 30, 40 wholesale deals closed in. So I'm thinking I'm the man, which that was, of course, great. But I'm in here listening. I'm talking to people who doing 6 figures a month in wholesaling, and I'm like, what? I didn't even know that was possible, So when you go from, maybe, 4 or 5 figures a month in wholesale fees, and now you're talking to people who doing 6 figures a month in wholesale fees, I want to be around those type of conversations to see what exactly are you doing, So that was conversations that I wasn't used to hearing, because everybody around me at the time, maybe 1, 2 deals a month, something like that. Now you're around people who are doing 10, 20, 30 deals a month, and they're talking about KPIs, they're talking about systems, they're talking about marketing channels, they're talking about automation. I wasn't hearing these conversations. Again, I said this is what's right for me. And in order for me to get to the next level, I have to be in this room. I have to be in this mastermind. I have to be a part of conversation like this. And like you said, Martine, like I can't even put a dollar amount on your relationship. Like I don't even know what the money I spent on that mastermind, but it wasn't even nowhere near worth the relationships that we have and the other relationships we have outside of ours. Like you can't even put a dollar amount on that. So it's like what people don't realize when it comes to communities and joining those type of masterminds, it's not about paying the mentor. No, it's not about paying time. It's not about like the real secret sauce is inside of the community, the other people that you're gonna meet, the network inside of the community. That's where the real sauce comes from. So like you said, this relationship here, it's priceless.
Yeah. Yeah, because like being in those rooms, like you said, you start hearing higher level conversations, things that you never even knew about before. I know I never knew about some of that stuff before, but just to share what I got out of those rooms. When I first started, I was doing wholesaling because that's all I knew. I read a Sean Terry book. That's all I knew. He talked about selling a contract. I said, that sounds easy enough. I'll do that. So I get out there and I finally start making money. And if I'm honest, I only finally start making money after I listened to Tom's podcast because he was telling you exactly what to do. And then I would go out and make money, but I was making little small wholesale fees. I would be making, I don't know, I think the most I had was 10,000 at that time for all the wholesale fees I had gotten at the time. As soon as I joined the group, the average fee was 20. Like as soon as I joined, that was the average. Like that was actually the minimum that I would even consider a deal if I couldn't make 20 off the deal. But just think, guys, if I had like all I knew was wholesaling at the time. But just think, if I were to be in a room where they were talking about buying and holding, and this is the power of that, I would have leaned towards that because that's who I was hanging around. So being in those rooms really just opens your mindset into making more money, which is great. I know we all want to make more money, but then also it helps you build these amazing relationships. Everybody on this podcast today, I met in an event. I did not know any of you in my everyday life. If I would have just stuck to that, I wouldn't have even met these wonderful people on this podcast today.
Wow. That's amazing.
Would you say that getting in real estate and then further getting coaching for real estate, would you say that changed your life?
Absolutely. It changed my life. I still to this day, as much as I know, I still be a part of masterminds. I still pay for coaching. Even, as much as I know, I think it's one of those things where you'll never stop because you don't want to never stop learning. Until you say, you know what, I'm retiring, I'm good, then I would say, okay, but up until that time, you got to continue to because you're investing into yourself. It's not to get out of the mindset of I'm paying this person. No, you're paying yourself to learn a skill set that you do not know. And you're paying to get around people like Martine, people like Lori, people like-minded people that's going to help elevate you. And sometimes people just need to be in these communities because you need a mindset shift. Sometimes it's not even in the real estate. I think a lot of this stuff be mental. And you got people that you need to be around that's going to help elevate you, hold you accountable. Make sure that you do what you say you're going to do. Because we don't have family members and friends that know anything about real estate. But Martine, Lori, and just the words of advice and encouragement they're going to give you and holding you accountable to what you're supposed to be doing, that alone is priceless. So I just think that if you are serious about real estate or anything, find a person that you know that you resonate with that's doing better than you, and you need to be around. You need to get around that person, whether it's a pay, whether it's free, or whatever you have to do. You need to get in that room and you need to get around that person, and you need to absorb every bit of information that person has available.
I love it. I could ask you questions forever because I'm really loving what you got to say, and people need to hear this because we all think we got it all figured out. But if we're honest with ourselves, if your life isn't looking the way that you want it to look, maybe you don't know all the answers. Maybe it's someone that can help you get to a higher level that you want to be at. But I want to ask you, Will, what would you say is a great resource or like a game changer that really helped you get to that next level when you decided that you wanted to do real estate?
Far as resource, like I said, I just invested a lot just in coaches, buying courses. I bought so many, so it's so hard to kind of say. And it also just and another thing that I learned in Tom Crowe's mastermind, the Wholesaling Inc. mastermind, which I still hear him talk about to this day, is the power of reading. And I was not a reader before I joined his mastermind. And I think I read Rhinoceros Success of what's a full law, full principle? What is full
The
laws of
four
spirit?
spiritual laws.
Four spiritual law. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's just a lot of books that he kept telling us to read, and how he encouraged us to like only read a couple of pages a day until you know, because I wasn't a reader, so he was just encouraging us, just little simple stuff like that. And somebody would be like, reading a book, like what is that? Like that changed my life. You know what I'm saying? Becoming a reader. You know what I'm saying? That changed my life. And that was one of the things I always remembered about him. And I still see he preached that to this day. It's just the power of reading, you know. And again, I never grew up around nobody who told me to pick up a book outside of when I was in school, you know. So now that we're adults, think about how many people tell you to pick up a book and read. You know, how many people encourage you to learn a new craft or study this way or study that way, you know. So I just think just, you know, the more and more I seen that I kept investing into myself, being around those type of like-minded people, I just kept picking up on things that still to this day help me in life.
Yeah. I'd say I definitely wasn't a reader either. I was not a reader. I remember I would go places and I would bring a book for me so like I could like sit in the waiting room because I wanted to just make myself start reading. And still didn't want to read it. And then like I would get home and like this is when I was still working a job. I would get home and I was like, oh, I can't turn the TV on. I have to read. I must. And then what I found is that I started reading and I'm like, wow, these books are actually pretty good.
Absolutely.
These books are actually pretty good. And then like they are the stuff that we read mainly is like self-help, how to, you know, elevate your mindset, that type of stuff. So it really helps you in life, like you said. So that's like a huge game changer. I don't know if you guys can see because my hair is a little big, but I got my bookcase back there. I need another one because there's so many books to read.
Another thing, Martine, that I did learn with my journey of paying for coaching and getting to different masterminds and coaching programs was I realized that people don't, when you don't pay, you don't pay attention, you know, and a lot of when you don't invest into yourself, you don't take the free stuff as serious. But once you start paying and you start getting around high level people, it's like the conversations and the information is different. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's so important to, you know, invest in yourself. I mean, I just think that's very, very important.
Yeah. And then like a lot of the times, not all the time, but a lot of the times you get into these coaching programs and you're meeting people from different markets. And what I've noticed is that the people that are in a different market with you than you, they're an open book. They tell you everything. They don't look at you as competition. There's no more wall. So they just start telling you things. Like I remember it was a guy that was in that program. He's in Ohio. So he used to just tell me everything he was doing. I was like, oh man, this is great. I'm going to do it. And I remember the time I was still wholesaling and I was able to make $40,000 on a house because of what he told me to do. And I would have never known I wasn't in that group. So you're bringing up some really valuable points about investing in yourself and continually to invest in yourself. I still have a coach. I'm still paying someone to coach me because I know that they can elevate me to the next level. And I remember you said maybe you should stop when you retire. I don't know what that feels like. Maybe I will feel like that when I'm old. But it's just it's fun. Like we have a good time and we're just continually working on ourselves and improving ourselves. So Will, let the people know if they want to get in touch with you, what is the best way to get in contact with you? Do you have something you want to offer folks? All that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm on most social media platforms. I'm on Instagram at Uncle Bill Buy Houses. That's my handle at Uncle Bill Buy Houses. I'm on Facebook under my real name, Will Galloway. and I'm on TikTok as well at Uncle Bill Buy Houses. And get ready to launch, my first community. Well, not my first community, but my online community is called the Flip University. I'm excited about that. We're doing a soft launch now. We actually, my birthday is on the 23rd. So on the 21st, we're doing a homeless giveaway. And then when we leave there, we're going to go look at one of my rental properties. So that's, if you want to know a little bit more about that, of course, the link is in my bio, in my Facebook and my Instagram account. But yeah, that's really my focus. My focus really right now, I mean, I've seen a lot of success. I have a lot of properties. I have a lot of cash flow coming in monthly. So I don't really want or need anything. I just always been passionate about giving back. It's just always been a passion of mine. I get more, like a lot of people get joy in the closing deals and making money. I get joy into other people closing deals and making money. Like it's nothing like seeing, and I know you can relate to this, Martine. It's nothing like your students close their first deal and they get their first check and the smile on their face and how that changes their life. That to me, I get so much enjoyment and from that. And that's why I'm passionate, just like you are, just passionate about giving back and just teaching people, because I believe that everybody should own some real estate. You don't have to necessarily put on the investor hat and label yourself as an investor, but I do think you need to own some real estate, and I want to put that word out to the universe.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. You're right. It feels so good knowing that someone actually listened to you. They did it and it worked for them. That's amazing. Now, Lori, if the listeners want to get in contact with you, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
So I'm on all the social medias, Facebook, TikTok, all Instagram. So if you are deal making, I'm a deal maker in Virginia. If you just want to talk real estate, I'm up for that. Also work with private lenders and, we partner together and make win-wins. So if you want to connect, reach out that way. I know my email will also be in the show notes. So let's make some money.
That's right. Let's make some money. Those are my favorite types of friends.
Absolutely.
And guys, if you want to get in contact with me, I have a totally free buy and hold community on Facebook. It's called The Freedom Inc. Answer the 4 questions and I'll let you in. If you do not answer the 4 questions, I have to always say this because people try to try their hand. I will not let you in. So it's a free group. We have a case study every Tuesday where I show you a real deal and I show you how to use other people's money to buy these deals and how you can keep them and continue to do this over and over and over again. And these aren't hypothetical deals, guys. These are real deals. So if you want to be a part of that community, just go to the link. It's going to be in the show notes, but the name of the group is The Freedom Inc. But thank you so much, Will, for being on the podcast today. Man, this was an amazing episode. I hope you guys used your AI to take notes so that you can use all of this great information that Will gave us today. But until next time, Do It Movement listeners, see ya!
Thank you for tuning into our show. If you need more hand-holding on your rental property investor journey, book a 15-minute strategy session with Martine. We can see if you're a fit for the Freedom Inc. fam, link in the show notes. Also be sure to join the free Freedom Inc. Facebook group, where each week Martine goes over a real-life rental property investor deal and shows you how the deal was found, how to get the money, and how to make a cash flow and much more. If you'd like to connect with Lori, be sure to email her at vitalizeproperties@live.com. Until next time, see you.